Good evening, race fans, and welcome back to TRTN here for tonight's coverage of VSR Phoenix Season 8, Round 7 and 8 here at a very wet Snetterton for our second of 3 available sprint rounds this season. I, of course, am always Regan Clark, and you join me, as mentioned, from the Snetterton circuit in its 300 configuration here as we closely await the start of our first of 2 qualifying sessions today. Much like Silverstone, it represents the post-war motorsporting boom in the United Kingdom, as it also shared its former past life, such as Silverstone as well, as a former RAF base, which was then loaned out to the United States Army Air Force in 1943. It was the housing and operations base for a myriad of B-17 Flying Fortresses and B-26 Marauders. In the modern day, it is the home of all things British motorsports, hosting races for the BTCC, British GT, British Superbikes and TCR UK. Today, though, it is the home of Round 7 and 8 in double trouble here back in Great Britain. We closely await the start of qualifying today. It's going to be an interesting stage in the championship for our drivers. We're going to look at an overall standings, but we'll start off by discussing some division standings here as we wait for the start of qualifying. And starting us off in the gold category, it's a 68-point lead at the moment between White Doctor and Chris MCK08, with Just Boris now up to 3rd in the overalls and division championship. He'll be hunting down the lead of this championship by the end of Season 8, as the news comes through that White Doctor is scheduled to miss 3, if I'm told correctly, rounds of the championship. We get on board then with our drivers. They make their way out of the paddock here for what is a very, very short qualifying session indeed. Only 10 minutes to contend with. And let's get on board with the car leading the pack in stealth camouflage, so it seems, is Elite Cassie. And it has been, to say the least, an interesting championship so far for Cassie. It's not been his finest moments in the last couple of races here, but with what looks like dry conditions to start us off with here at this leg of the championship, it's going to be a hopeful sign for Cassie to pick up some of the losses that he unfortunately suffered back in Zolder last Wednesday. And speaking of Zolder, getting a look at our previous wins over the course of the championship, you'll see that it was White Doctor's second race win this season. He continues to open the gaps on his championship lead, trying to make it upwards of 150 if he means to hold on to the championship lead by the time he returns at the end of the season. Further behind that, last time we were in Great Britain, it was a win for Just Boris, who looks pitched for pole position today. And moreover, onto the discussion of qualifying predictions, you can see there it's by 0.2 of a second to Tyler Vermack that Just Boris holds the mantle of a predicted pole position. Cassie not even appearing on the top 10 charts. Looking down through from 3rd to 10th, you have VSR Grizz on a very hopeful run in the Audi. He's 3rd and only a single, actually 0.02 of a second ahead of VSR OT. Wishful Winnings now promoted to gold from reserve, returning to a mainstay drive. Is currently predicted at 5th position, ahead of last round's race winner White Doctor, who's 6th position currently so far. Tommy Johansson's predicted at 7th, with Twigler 8th. Abok predicted at 9th and Funky Fish predicted at 10th. Looking at balance of performance coming into this round, it still looks to be Lexus's game to play here, with only Lexus and McLaren seeing any kind of advantage in balance of performance coming into today's double set of races. Further up the order, you can see, though, Audi now gaining kilos, which is a bit of a rare sight for them. They've normally been on the long end of the stick when it comes to balancing over the course of this season. Aston Martin gaining 3, both Porsche and Lamborghini gaining 5, Ferrari gaining 8, Mercedes gaining 10, BMW, which we can see on screen at the moment, the number 98 BMW, gaining 16 kilos, Ford gaining 20. It's going to make a tough session today then for some of the heavyweights, especially for BMW here. We know that Elite Cassie can do a very, very solid bang-up job of qualifying. We'll see what he's capable of right now. He makes his way out of Agostini and towards Hamilton. We'll stay on board with him here for the full tour around the Snetterton circuit. We came up through the centre straight, Riches, Montreal and Palmer before we started covering corner names. We're just out through Oggies now and out towards Williams. And then onto the Bentley straight. Now, something that Snetterton is pretty solid for is its bountiful supply of straights between the corners here. And that does give rife opportunity for side-by-side and down the inside action into our many braking zones available here on this track. Making our way down through Brundle and Nelson and into a section of the track the drivers were very excited to see me pronounce. It's a corner that goes by the name of... And And you can imagine what that sounds like when I try and pronounce it very quickly. Now, of course, we like to take things very seriously here on TRTN, so no funny business whatsoever. With that being said, we're back on with Elite Cassie on his way out of Coram and Murray's. Now on his way down to the start-finish line then, on the centre straight. It'll be our first times of the day here for the first qualifying session of 2. Elite Cassie to the line, number 98, crosses the line, a 147.970. The rebuttal by Boris is a 147.067. Wishful Winnings making second there, pushing Cassie down to third by 0.3 of a second. A little bit of what looks to be desync there. Tyler Vermack lines up behind them. Giles trying to set in their first times there. Doesn't count for the 57, but it does count for Tommy, who puts in the provisional 5th fastest time. A mirror match there, down to the 1,000th between himself and Tyler Vermack's Aston Martin. Chris MCK then provisionally 6th. You can see Taz behind him there, provisionally 7th. Smiler crossing the line and doesn't appear to set a time. Abok behind him from inside the top 10. Doesn't set a time either. We can see one of the new drivers for today, Reneze, in the 114 Lamborghini, setting the 7th fastest time then. One of the many representatives of K1 Esports now making a trip into VSR Phoenix, much like Tyler Vermack before them. They're currently 1.2 seconds off the beat here, and we're nearly halfway into this qualifying session, so really not a lot of time to cover what is going to be a jam-packed twin set of qualifying sessions. Now, one driver that's looking very hopeful here on their qualifying endeavours currently lines up on that front row. Only a 10th ahead of the car behind them, that now being Soviet Mario, who I must say is having a blistering opening half to that session there. We're now halfway through quali, under 5 minutes left to go. Really not a lot of time to cover whatsoever. So is it more likely than not to be a bit of a quali shootout between the 2nd through 5th positions here, with Boris obtaining such a dominant control by a 6/10, nearly 7/10 margin. He's making his way out of Coram right now. Wishful is going to be hoping here for improvements, greener pastures, as it were. White Doctor now joins the fray by 2/10 up. Elite Cassie closes the margin down. Boris opens the gap back up, so it's constant pushing and pulling between these drivers at the moment. Wishful couldn't get a time in there for an improvement. Can Vermack? Yes, he does. Giles behind him, so is Tommy. We'll see where they end up. As we saw there, neither of them seem to have found the ground for an improvement. Just quickly checking through. No, as a matter of fact, blindness from us here. Tommy up to second by under a 10th of a second. Now that is looking a bit spicy, if I do say so. Now these drivers, of course, in those qualifying predictions would have had countless hours, a near limitless, bountiful amount of time to get those times in for our data loggers. But this is really where push comes to shove, and this is where, in that 10 minutes, they're going to have to prove the sort of talk they've laid down here. You can, sort of walk the walk, can you talk the talk, and vice versa. And that seems to be the challenge a lot of these drivers are now grappling with. We see 2 drivers here very, very near that 46 to 47 mark. Just Boris, the only driver at the moment to be in the 46s by the end of this session so far. Now, we must say that point, so far. Watching here with Tommy, he makes his way down the Bentley straight. We'll quickly check in with the next driver to make their way to the start-finish line. It's White Doctor with Aston Martin. Getting a look here, the 54 has been oh so confident over the course of this season. It's almost a bit of a bittersweet moment now to know that he'll be missing a few rounds of the championship, meaning he's got to make the most of the time he's got here, and by just over half a second he gets toward the line. Will it be an improvement? Up to third, yes it is, and closes the gap to under 2/10. Elite Cassie, though, not too far away at all. He's only got 0.03 of a second between himself and a third place start. That second row is razor thin, and it's the same story up front there between Tommy and Boris. That is really proven to be quite an interesting ensemble we're observing there. We just saw across the line as well on our map was ETE Giles. We saw a very interesting strategy out of him last round in Zolder. Now with 2 opportunities to make true on his endeavours towards a podium, dare I say even to a race win in this season. It'll be his first since last season, I believe I think it was round 14, I want to say. We'll have to wait and see though. Tyler Vermack up and ahead of White Doctor, and Elite Cassie makes his way to the front of that second row. He is vying up his chances for another race win on the charts here. Now, having a look at those previous race wins from back through Season 7, we don't have the graphic to hand at the moment, but taking a look through our historical records, we see the last time Vermaak got a race win here in VSR Phoenix was back in round 8 at Bathurst. So, long overdue some success here now in his tenure with Aston Martin. He's gone through a few different manufacturers to get to this comfortable point in his career. The 94 will be gunning for gold in this round by the looks of it. It looks a very spry endeavour by Vermaak. He's still classed as the number 94. He personally messaged us the other day to let him know of his brand new number 835. Now, when we asked him about it, apparently these are lucky numbers in Japanese, and that's to tie in with the NLRL Solo Multi-Class Endurance coming up this Saturday, where he'll be racing with the Japanese brand, Lexus. That'll be his first time making his debut with Lexus and their mighty RCF. But with under a minute left to go then, at the end of qualifying 1, we'll see where things land between our drivers. Not too long now, and next towards the line, we'll actually get on board with him, is ETE Giles. Now, we discussed him just a moment ago. We'll see where the penny drops in this final run. So he's got just about 30 seconds as he crosses the line there from 14th to 11th. Can he make a top 10 start? That is the going rates for the 57. That is the target here for round 7 of the championship. He knows he's got another one on the horizon here, so he's got plenty of time to become accustomed to the many tricks here at Snetterton. We'll quickly catch on board, though, with Soviet Mario. He had a very spry start. Let's see if he has a spry finish. Ahead of him there is Blue Frog, who is just starting their one and only flying lap for this session, so it seems. They're currently 21st. Soviet Mario, though, goes pole. And that is remarkable. It took a second for it to update there, but that is absolutely blinding stuff by Soviet Mario. What is going to be the sort of final verdict then? We still have a few of our heavy hitters out on track. We'll get on board with the next drivers heading towards the line at the moment. Shawnee Mack, and then behind him the 114 of Renese, the new driver with Lamborghini, makes his way into the top 10. Shawnee Mack there just at the back of the field from 19th. Toward the line he goes and makes it to 17th. Where does Renese drop the penny here? He's still in 8th though at the end of quali. A very good entry point though for the number 114. It's going to be an exciting entry to VSR Phoenix for this one. He's really locked in on the best opportunity to come into this championship. Now we'll just quickly see, what can White Doctor do? Is this what the Doctor orders? He'll be hunting down another pole position. He's from 5th position at the moment. He'll be gunning for the front row. As he gets to the line, it will sadly only be a 5th place start. Boris to the line though, retakes pole. Like clockwork there, that is what he's made of. Stern stuff by the 999. 3/10 of a second. Can you believe that? 57 next to the line. ETE Giles crosses the line. Is it going to be into the top 10? It's 8th there. Fantastic at the end of this session. Vermaak to the line from 4th up to 3rd. A great exit then for our first of 2 qualifying sessions today. It's going to make for a very exciting first of 2 races. The number 44 to the line then. Grizz was looking hopeful in this round. He's 8th for the end of qualifying 1. And Blue Frog to the line. What is going to be the final verdict for the 61? He gets across the line for 8th place. So 8th is really hotly contested today. Otzi to the line is 10th at the end of Quali 1. What an ending to our first qualifying session. That is setting the precedent rather nicely for our first of 2 30-minute races here in Snetterton Circuit. We'll get the full rundown of the grid in just a moment, but let's just quickly recount the overall championship standings. It's White Doctor leading by 68 points to Chris MCKO8. Boris now from 4th up to 3rd in the championship on his hunt down for a 2nd consecutive championship here in VSR. Blue Frog now drops to 4th position with Tyler Vermaak in 5th, Elite Cassie in 6th position, and in 7th is Soviet Mario. You can see it's a very, very tight margin there inside the top 10 at the moment. Tommy in 8th position by only a single point away from Soviet, and behind him ETE Giles in 9th position by a single point ahead of the last of our top 10, SN Quees. It is going to be a very, very interesting race indeed. 2 of which on the charts, round 7. And then we get into the second half of Season 8 just after that. Hot on the trails of this race. Don't go anywhere. You've got Double Trouble up for today's serving of races. And we'll be at Monza next week at the Temple of Speed for round 9 to kick off not Season 2, the second half of Season 8 proper. Then we'll be at Paul Ricard, Ricardo Tormo, Barcelona and Kyle Army for the weeks thereafter, finishing things off just at the start of next month. To recount our news then, before we get on to our grid, we've got quite the ensemble. Of course, everyone saw how Oscar Piastri won the Spanish Grand Prix. I think even more people had their eyes focused on Max Verstappen in what was a very interesting state of affairs. The Dutchman was then penalised following the incident he had with George Russell down, I believe it was turn 4 at Repsol. He's since been penalised. He dropped to P10. In the World Rally Raid Championships, it was Henk Lategan winning his home rally in the South Africa Safari Rally with Toyota in the mighty Hilux Ultimate. In IMSA, it was Ford and Acura opening the taps to win in Detroit in what was a fantastic street race ensemble. Plenty of twists and turns in the GTD category that opened the doors for Ford's win in the Motown. In Formula E, it was Max Günther and Nick Cassidy winning in the Shanghai double race. Max Günther was one of 2 drivers to make DS Penske's first ever 1-2 finish alongside teammate Jean-Eric Vergne. And then the last of our news today, Max Verstappen gains an FIA Platinum license. What does this mean? It means that the 4-time F1 champion can now compete, should he choose to, in World Endurance, IMSA, or the European Le Mans Series. This further cements ties to the rumour that he may be leaving Formula 1 very, very soon after a series of frustrating races and a frustrating season all 2025 with his home team at Red Bull Racing. So, getting onto the grid then for round 7 of VSR Phoenix Season 8. Starting us off from pole position is Just Boris yet again on what looks to be wet conditions. Now, we saw how the Lamborghini struggled last week there to get to grips, no pun intended, with the wet conditions back at Zolder. Now, of course, we've been warned there are mixed, potentially dry or potentially wet conditions, so we couldn't give you an accurate prediction as to what things were going to be like from race 1 to race 2 today for round 7 and 8. But looks like it's going to be a very interesting defence here by Just Boris, starting right alongside him then on a very brisk qualifying session, and hunting his first win is Soviet Mario. Tyler Vermaak starts third ahead of Tommy on what makes an ultra-competitive top 4, and that's almost joined up to the end of a top 5 there with White Doctor. Further back than he'd like to be, but we've seen how capable the Aston Martins are in wet condition. Keep a very close eye on Vermaak and White Doctor there inside the top 5. Elite Cassie right behind him is looking to make up for his losses back in Zolder, looking to take to the wet weather again and this time come out on top. He's in 6th and ahead of Wishful Winnings. In 8th position is Blue Frog on a very, very brisk qualifying session. One and done for the number 61, and he makes 8th position in what was hotly contested between not only himself, but Grizz and Oatsy and Giles, all of which were vying for that position, but they will start 9th, 10th and 11th. Reneze on his first race here will start in 12th position. Chris MCKO8 in 13th, Funky Fish 14th, Twiglet 15th, Abok 16th, Tommy Johansson 17th, Shawnee Mac 18th, Taz 19th, Smiler 20th and Jaco 14 in 21st. Now, we've been told there are quite some tensions in and amongst the paddock today, especially in the practice sessions heading into today's race. We'll be starting up with our leading car then, our pole position sitter, Just Boris, who will take us away on the start of our formation lap for race 1 of 2 today. We'll be back in just a moment's time. Now, of course, with 2 races up for grabs today, the first of which appears to be in rather wet and rainy conditions, much too similar, as a matter of fact, to round 6 of the championship last Wednesday, as we mentioned before. And for Just Boris, we know how that panned out. It was still a podium finish, but thoughts of what could have been on the day, as he lost out to White Doctor, who, I must say, is right now in these conditions dangerously close to last season's champion right now, and every position he drops to that Aston Martin is one step backwards away from a consecutive championship, so it's going to need to be a near flawless drive here in round 7. Of course, he'll always have the opportunity to make up for those mistakes today. That's one of the unfortunate aspects here of the sprint format. And speaking of, having a look at our changes here for rounds 7 and 8, of course, we're back to the sprint format. Wishful Winnings has been moved from reserve to gold with 2 quali sessions today, each at 10 minutes, and 2 race sessions today, each at 30 minutes. But standard points, if we're led to believe correctly here, as we saw with the results back at our time at the Red Bull Ring, rounds 3 and 4, which was won by White Doctor and SN Queese. That was an absolute knockout show, so let's hope here that we're on for even more fun. We're down the Bentley straight at the moment with Just Boris. You can see an oh so mighty grid lining up behind him there, and I've got high hopes riding on the performance of the 2 Aston Martins inside that top 5. We saw just how easy it was for them back in Zolder. Bear in mind they'll have half the time to make true on these promises as we make our way out through Nelson and down through the corner with no distinct name whatsoever at turn 10. On our way down towards Coram and Murray's. It is going to be a very exciting race then on our hands here in VSR Phoenix. We are but moments then away from the start of one of 2 races today. So we're heading down out of Coram and down towards Murray's. You can see Just Boris controlling the pace of the pack there. 21 cars in all in very slippy conditions here on an already claustrophobic track like Snetterton. Very little runoff. You can see it's grass on either side of it. It's going to have to be razor precise stuff out of our drivers today to get the most out of today's wet race. I imagine there'll be a dry one on the horizon for them. So with every dark cloud comes a silver lining. But without further ado, as we head down towards the line here for round 7 of season 8 of VSR Phoenix. 21 cars in all, leading the charge then, last season's champion. What can he do against uncertain odds such as these? As we're green and racing here in Snetterton for the first of 2 times today. 30 minutes on the clock on our way down towards Riches. Already a fantastic start, oh my word! Did you see that? I could barely catch my breath on our way down towards turn 1. It has already come apart at the seams for Just Boris. Absolute disaster. On our way down through turn 1, and he's not the only driver to have been picked up in the fray. Underpinning the brakes was Soviet Mario. Oh my goodness gracious me. We're on board with Elite Cassie right now, right behind our new race leader. I could barely get my words together there down into turn 1. We're on board with Elite Cassie currently fighting for the race lead. You can see Blue Frog and Wishful Winnings really getting each other through the corner. Their elbows out between the pair of them. The Mustang already up to 3rd. This is absolutely brutal stuff. That was unbelievable for a start like that. 30 minutes, and really you would have expected the bulk of the action to have happened after turn 1, not at turn 1. We would have expected most of that to have gone down at Montreal. What a shocker to the system that has proven to be. Let's catch on board here very quickly. Down the order. Well, not too far down the order, I should say. This is with Wishful Winnings, as he's fighting for 3rd place here in this race. And it's been very, very tight stuff from the word go between these two. This is Wishful Winnings' first race back in the definitive gold category on our way out of turn 10 then on down towards Coram. He's got quite the handful here in the company of the Blue Frog after a very chaotic start, one that I imagine Boris will not be happy with at all. That was a run and done qualifying session for last season's champion. He looked oh so confident coming into this opening race of 2 today. He's going to have some stiff words in the paddock. He'll have even stiffer words at next qualifying in 30 minutes time. What an interesting opener we have been given today. That is absolutely bizarre stuff then. We'll catch up with Wishful Winnings in a moment's time. We take a look down the order as things continue to bunch up. This is from the perspective of Oatsy, but we're going to try and catch on board here with Twiglet, who's caught right firm in the thick as we head around Montreal. It is utter calamity. Desync aloof on our way down through Montreal. Getting a look at that on the replay. It was a bit of a messy scene there, to say the least. We're on board with Twiglet. You can see really bad disconnect problems at the moment. Desync aloof. Pings at an all-time high. So many drivers caught up in the midst of that. We're now on board with Just Boris, who himself appears to be struggling a little bit with desync as car almost floating around Palmer Corner. at turn 3. Now on his way down towards Agostini. It's the story of 2 Lamborghinis here towards the back of the pack. Him and Renese, new driver, 114 with K1 Esports. And they're towards the back of the field here. It has got to be a very sore sight to see the rest of the grid up ahead of him. Let's go on board, though, with our front runners as things look to spice up. You can see that Cassie is closing the margin down to Soviet right now, but I think the closer margin still is going to be between himself and the driver in 3rd place. Let's get on board with him. It's the Blue Frog. Did a run-and-done qualifying session, and fair play to him, put him 8th position, and he's really took the opportunity that was found down at turn 1 and ran with it. It is an absolutely brutal start, and we saw he's in no short quantity for these absolute knockout drives this season, and he is gunning for his first win here, and he's already on the podium, and 4 minutes in has got plenty of time to work with. Right now, though, he's looking to hold off 3rd position. He's holding on to it right now, but trying to hold off the car behind him for that position. That should be the more accurate use of vernacular for that one. Down into turn 1. What an oddball start we have been graced with today. Down towards Montreal. Now this has been the site of many an off already. You can see Wishful was having pretty solid mid-corner rotation. Now, something I am definitely quite shocked about, and I think it was because they were caught up in that turn 1 scrim, was the 2 Aston Martins. As a matter of fact, we're going to have to cut away from our fight for 3rd here. We can see up ahead, things are livening up for the lead of this race, as Soviet Mario leads the charge right now. Cassie went for the inside, but ran things deep through Agostini. So Blue Frog's got a very easy P2 off of his hands there. Wretched it out of his hands down through Agostini at turn 4. Camera angle's not super revealing here. They like these long shot cameras. Giles up to 5th then. He's made 3 positions from race start and ahead at the moment of Elite Cassie. Looking further around the field here, we can see Boris right up to the tailpipes of Jayco 14's Porsche. Trying for the inside there. It's been given decent room by the Porsche. On his way down out of Hamilton towards Oggies. Porsche back up the inside. You can see there's another Porsche there. That's Tommy getting into the action. You can see behind them was trouble for Tommy Johansson and Renese. It has just been an absolute disaster start for some of our top 10s. Finding themselves all the way back here. You can see how Tommy has just been sandwiched in there. Let's try and get on board with him just quickly. He was sandwiched in by Jayco and Shawnee Mack. He's going to have to try something very ambitious on his way towards Brundle, and he does. Up a position and then 2 as cars go spinning off behind him. It has been absolute bedlam from start to finish then. Make absolutely no mistake of that. You can see here, this was Tommy on the exit of the Bentley straight down towards Brundle and Nelson. And there was just a bit of a scrape there between Shawnee Mack and Jayco. We're back on board with the race leader at the moment, Soviet Mario, who, while he does, yes, lead this race, is definitely one marred by a little tinge of controversy, to say the least, especially with that incident down at turn 1. Apologies for the interruption. We're still on board with Soviet at the moment on his way down the Bentley straight. He leads from the Blue Frog and Wishful winnings at the moment from 1st down to 3rd. Twiglet in chat already. This season has been a shocker for me. Can't wait till it's over. We're just heading into that halfway mark there. There is still silver linings to be had with 7 more races on the horizon after this one today, but definitely a bit of an exit for that opening half, to say the least. We'll take a look away from the race lead at the moment. We can see right now what looks to be an emerging fight here for 7th position. Getting a look on board then with Otzi as he nearly falls victim there to White Doctor. Now this is all in contention for 7th position. Realistically, we're looking more at a fight for 8th between himself and White Doctor in a defensive posture for McLaren. Number 6 is vulnerable on the exit of Coram down towards Murray's. You can see the Aston has just got a little less acceleration to play with, utilising some of the wet acceleration maps here to give himself a little bit more of a graceful exit to these corners. Now we really sort of balancing stability with aggression here. You can see Vermac getting elbows out to get up and ahead of Funky Fish on his way down to turn 1. Gets that nailed in before the apex of turn 1. Oh, never mind. Did you see that in the background there? Let's just quickly go on to the replay to see if we can catch exactly what went on. We'll keep you updated on that fight between Doctor and Oatsy whilst we check the replay. This was down through turn 1 at Riches. You just saw in the background what we thought was a pretty clear-cut move. Clearly wasn't. It's into the wall in the background. That's Funky Fish. That is the Porsche of Funky Fish into the background there. Still on board with Oatsy then. Holding off 8th. Now having a gander for 7th. 3-car scrim for 7th position now. 8th was where all of these drivers were fighting for at one point in qualifying. Now it becomes on track a story of 7th position. White Doctor further down than he'd like to be. Still fighting with inside that top 10. Trying for the inside. It's contact between himself and Oatsy, but they quickly resolve that on track. But now entering the fray in what is now a 3-car fight for 8th is another Aston Martin. It's Tyler Vermac on the back end of White Doctor as we exit through Williams' corner, down the Bentley straight. You can see behind Oatsy at the moment. That fight currently ongoing for 9th position. Civil war between the two Aston Martins on their way down the back straight towards Brundle and Nelson. It's Vermac to the inside, but he holds off. White Doctor holds his nerve there after a little bit of a fright between himself and Oatsy on our way out through turn 10 and into Coram. Still leading this race then, the number 26 from the 61 and the 23. So a very hopeful looking podium at the moment, much to the chagrin of our original podium sitters in this race. Twiglet in chat asking what happened to Boris. Massive incident down at turn 1 between himself and Soviet Mario. We're still watching the fight for 8th for the moment as things look to go white hot between White Doctor and Oatsy. The Doctor is in office on his way down through turn 1, trying his luck then on Oatsy. First through Riches, now has a very good run on the exit of turn 1. Maybe trying his luck. Now goes for around the outside at Montreal. Is he trying for a late apex? Oatsy just covers him off. That invites Tyler Vermac in to come and have a go. White Doctor, though, a bit of a nick around the back end there. And he just sends him careening. And he collects Vermac on his way round. What on earth went on there? It seems to be another desync-related issue. Nicked him around the back end. Not entirely sure. He was actually inside the McLaren at one point there during that incident. See, there was the initial tap, and then you can actually see the whole car phase through him. Then he collects the Aston Martin. So I must say, that is very, very bizarre indeed. Seems to be a bit of desync problems on the horizon here. That incident has definitely given a lot more spur in confidence for Just Boris. Currently in 11th, hunting down a top 10 finish there. Tyler Vermac, who was involved in that incident with White Doctor and VSR Oatsy, is only 2.5 seconds away. You see, everyone is seeming to have a little bit of a ping problem today, and apparently so are we with our computer pinging off like that. Not entirely sure what the issue is. Fortunately, I don't think it's OBS this time around. Some of you keen-eyed viewers at home may have noticed that we ran some diagnostic streams earlier in the week. We'll quickly check in here with the two Porsches, Tommy v Funky Fish. This is for 13th position. We'll stay on board with them. Funky Fish gets it very wide, and it nearly sends Tommy round at turn 10 there. He gets that tidied up before our run down into Coram and Murray's. Having a look around the field, the 27's in trouble. That's VSR Abok in 18th position. Right now, looking around the field to see where our next fights are coming from. You can see it's a bit of a poor exit through Montreal by Soviet Mario, so we'll stay on board with the attacking of two cars here. That being Blue Frog now contesting first position off of Soviet Mario. Now, he already had a bit of a shocker start there in his incident with Boris, but he's not let that get him down. He's just ran with the opportunity he's been presented with after that prang at turn 1, and now he may be shown the comeuppance. That is karma in the form of Blue Frog, who has been, frankly speaking, an unstoppable force for this opening half of the race. He has just gone, and gone. No matter what the position, no matter where the corner, if he sees the opportunity, it is a matter of when and not if he'll make the move. So on his way up through Williams at the moment, on our way down towards the Bentley Straight. See, Wishful is holding on to a solid P3 at the moment. but it's just too far away to be making any kind of move stick at this time. We'll just have to tuck in and pray that these two run into a fender bender on their way down through Brundle and Nelson. See Wishful getting all out of shape there on the exit of Nelson as we head through turn 10 down towards Coram. It's a big slide, but he corrects that very, very nicely, I should say. What a good bit of car control there by Blue Frog to have got himself out of almost certain trouble in a big car like the Mustang. 20 kilos added on that as well. He's not exactly on the dainty side of things for today's race. He's done very, very nicely there to keep things under wraps, but he has lost out time. 0.6 of a second is the gap between himself and Soviet on our way past the checkered line there. But even despite that incident, he was half a second faster over the course of the last lap. So it's looking very hopeful here for Blue Frog to have a go at a race lead very, very shortly. He's been holding on, he's been clinging really to Soviet like a bad habit through the first half of this race. We're approaching that second half in a moment's time, only a minute away as a matter of fact, and what an opening half it has proven to be in such a short span of time. We've had so much go on that could send shockwaves down the championship order by the end of today. Definitely, namely, between what went on down at lap 1, turn 1, that was a bit controversial to say the least. If Soviet can get things to the checkered flag, it would not be too difficult to see that would be removed for the incident down at turn 1. Now, of course, our cameras weren't the best sources of information for that. I imagine there will be a prompt investigation as per the norm here in VSR for what exactly went on down at turn 1. From our angle, really, it was too hard to tell. There's a lot of fog of war there from the opening grid. It's not our judgment to make these kind of calls too early on, especially with it only having passed 15 minutes ago. We'll catch up with these two in a moment's time then. We take a look around the rest of the field. There's our leading car, Soviet Mario, but we're going to quickly catch on board here with what looks to be an exciting battle here for 9th position. This is from the perspective of VSR Otzi, last season's Silver Division champion, as he's fighting with Tyler Vermack for 9th position on our way down the Bentley Straight. Now, Aston Martin has had, as far as things are concerned, a still fairly confident opener. The rain seems to be subsiding just a little bit here past the halfway mark, so Aston Martin's confident technical lead is going to be dwindling. You can see up ahead at the moment, Grizz and White Doctor continue their scrummage for 7th position. Right now, though, we're watching that fight for 9th between a reinvigorated Tyler Vermack and VSR Otzi hot on the trails of what was a very elbows-out drive in the opening half there. He really had to lick the stamp and send it in a few times there. It has not been a graceful race, very touring cars level stuff. And I think that's what Snetterton all but encourages, of course. One of the most chaotic races on the BTCC calendar. Up there with the like of Knockhill and Thruxton, of which we're at this week, if I'm not mistaken, the BTCC calendar. Right now, though, we can see Tyler Vermack eyeing up the inside now. Is it going to be double trouble like he had with Funky Fish? No, he's learnt his lesson this time around. Backs off at turn 1. He's going to let Otzi run it through the racing line. He'll still cling to the back of that McLaren on his way down towards Montreal. Very late on the brakes by Otzi. He's doing a very grand job here to just area denial that Aston Martin on what is a very easy section of the track to get passes in on most occasions here, but with a very narrow available grip line here, a dry line almost about a car's width so far. There is only so much room that Vermack can use without compromising his own line. Now, on a dry race, you could realistically expect these drivers to get a lot more elbows out than what we've seen already. So that does leave a little bit of a lump in the throat of not only ourselves here in the commentary box, but also for the rest of the grid. If we are to have a dry race today, bear in mind, still one more on the horizon. We're just over halfway then into round 7. Round 8 just over the horizon for us here in Snetterton. We can see Vermack very nearly found his way to the inside now as we exit through Oggies and Williams. On our way down the Bentley Straight, a lot closer than we were last time around. Getting a look from the rear view of the McLaren. Number 6, VSR Otzi, is exceedingly vulnerable now to the progress into position by the Aston Martin, but he goes ultra late on the brakes into Brundle. That is really some gung-ho stuff there by Otzi. He's really had to bite the bullet there and just risk it all for that position. All of their pushing and shoving, by the way, you can see is now attracting the attention of Just Boris, who has closed that gap down and looking for a top 10 finish. He's looking to make the most of what was a cataclysmic opening to this race today. On our way down the centre straight, Vermack is still very, very close indeed, just about a quarter of a second out from Otzi on our way down towards turn 1 now. Not as close as he was on that last lap gone, still making great strides there in the slipstream of the McLaren. Good exit through turn 1. I don't think it's going to put him any closer than it was the lap before to a move at Montreal. You can see Otzi already preemptively covering off the racing line. He's going to make Vermaak take the most awkward line possible to get around him, scrubbing as much momentum and as much speed as he can off of the Aston Martin to make it, if it's even possible, to be overtaken. Oh, so easy to reclaim the position, and that very nearly spelt doom for Tyler Vermaak. We saw problems there on the exit of Palmer, now into Agostini. We're back up with Grizz, so as a matter of fact, we're looking at a fight for 8th position. A 3-car fight as Grizz drops massively behind White Doctor, now for nearly 5 seconds up the road from our trio here. Very nearly contact between Grizz and Otzi. We saw a loss of grip out through, that was out through Hamilton. And then out through Williams. You can see very nearly contact for a second time there, this time between Grizz and Vermaak. Having a look behind her, you can see how razor thin it all is between these drivers. Let's, as a matter of fact, try and get on board here with a driver at the back of this fight, that being Just Boris. Right now, he's eyeing up a look into what appears to be 8th position. That was Tommy Johansson in trouble on the exit of Nelson Corner. Number 71 in the grass there from 20th position. I think feasibly here we're looking more at the fight for 9th position from the perspective of Boris as we make our way out of Murray's on our way down the centre straight. You can see he's got a clear line of sight on the Aston Martin. He's just tucked into the slipstream. The Audi trying to break the toe off of the 94 on our way down towards turn 1 again. 10 minutes left to go then. What can he do to reclaim the mantle? Now he's got 2 positions in line. If he can really surf it here, be looking even towards a fight for 8th. You can see he's trying to get inside Vermaak's head here. Not an easy driver to break by any stretch of the imagination. He has really been able to sharpen the blade in multiple different series. He knows this trick all too well. He's not going to be falling for it any time soon. See then, from Boris's perspective, he's got a clear line of sight. What looks to now be Vermaak's fight with Grizz as they are absolutely neck and neck on their way down towards Agostini. Is Vermaak going to try for it on the inside? It's a bit of contact there. There goes the Audi wide out through Agostini. Vermaak goes on through, a bit of push to pass there by the Aston. Grizz won't be happy with that one. Boris will, though, because it means even hotter blood in the water here. The moment things boil over between these two, it is absolute jackpot territory for Just Boris on his way now out through Oggies and in towards Williams. Right now, feasibly fighting for 10th position. It's the next on the itinerary for him as Grizz, now having dropped 2 positions back, is not happy, but is incredibly vulnerable. Down the Bentley straight, it's the battle of the V10s then. Sister cars, the Lamborghini and the Audi, sharing a platform for the engine. That V10, co-developed by both Lamborghini and Audi Sport. It's now a battle of chassis here to see who comes out on top. Will it be the Germans? Will it be the Italians? That is the real question. On our way down through Coram, I think we're about to find out. 8 minutes 45 left to go in what has been a very exciting opening of 2 races today. Let's see where the rhythm carries on into round 8 of the championship. As we can see there, Grizz diving for the pit lane, so an easy dive in a 10th position for Just Boris. Mission accomplished, back into the top 10. Having a look around the field then to see where our next fights could be coming from. Pay close attention to what's going on up in 8th position right now. It's between Tyler Vermaak and VSR Otzi now. These have been an inseparable duo for the longest time in this race. But I also want to pay some close attention here to what is going on further up the order at the moment. As a matter of fact, they're just making their way down towards Hamilton. Wishful Winnings and Blue Frog separated by just about half a second there. Elite Cassie closing the margin up. So we're going to get on board with these two. Wishful Winnings, of course, making his return to the gold category from out of his reserve drive, of which he's shared with, I believe, the only other driver he's shared that with, Charlie Smithy, over the course of this season. Right now is contending second on his way down the Bentley straight in what looks to be increasingly dry conditions at the end of round 7. Drivers not opting to go onto the dry tyres here. They're just going to stick things out, as it were. The track is becoming a little bit more persuasive, but whilst running the looser, wet setups, this is definitely going to throw a wrench in the works, especially for our current top 5. You can see Cassie there having to give it the old Sterling Moss there on his way out of turn 10. on our way out of Murray's. You can see Blue Frog, now that the wet weather seems to be subsiding, was a little bit vulnerable. Now, had it not been for the poor exit that Wishful Winnings had, he would have found himself ever closer to a fight for second right now. As Cassie shows him the lights, he is stuck firmly in a fight for third position. He is fighting for that podium finish with 6 minutes on the line, just under 7 as a matter of fact. He's already moving to the inside to try and hold off an offensive by Cassie, but just lets him roll on through. There's no competition involved and lets him sell himself short out through Montreal. Nearly puts himself back in a third there. I think he was hoping that Cassie would have ran himself off the course again, like earlier on in the race. You can see they're joined at the moment by Renese, who has had a lackluster start here in VSR. He had a hopeful qualifying session, but the wet weather has proven to be the Achilles heel for Lamborghini. So right now, they're outside of the top 5. Cassie with a little bit of a slide on the exit of Agostini. Wishful still clinging to the margins here. We'll be catching up with some of our other fights at the moment, and things are livening up further down the order. Right now, this is our highest up the order for fights of the day. For the last of our podium positions, 6 minutes left to go in today's race. And it looks like as we head out of Williams that Cassie's going to be able to open the taps up on that inline 6 and just get away. Inline versus V, the battle of 6 cylinders here for third position at round 7. Seems to be swinging in favour of BMW. Well, we'll catch up with these two later on in today's race, but let's have a look around the grid to see where our next fights are coming from. And a stop-go 30-second penalty for VSR Grizz after that stop in the pits has further cemented a dead stop to his racing endeavours today. We can see Taz at the moment from the back of the top 15, just slowly hunting down Funky Fish. We'll catch up with them later on. Soviet now leading the charge by 4 seconds. But the imminent fear of a penalty on the horizon for that incident down at turn 1, I imagine, has got to weigh quite heavy in his mind at the moment. We're back on board then with a man who started from pole position, now is fighting for 9th in this race. Just Boris lines up behind Tyler Vermack here on the exit of Murray's to hunt down the Aston Martin with just under 5 minutes left to go. It's looking very spry then on the exit of the last corner on our way down towards turn 1. It is practically neck and neck there, side-by-side stuff all the way down from the start-finish line down towards turn 1 we go. Boris is going to have to really try from dig deep here for a move around the outside at turn 1. Lets Vermack run himself on the inside, but you can see the Aston Martin is looking potentially to hold him off. No, as a matter of fact, but he knows he's far enough up the road for Boris to not try for a lunge on the inside. As a matter of fact, he'll wait until the apex as Vermack takes a bit of a wider line, but all of this is just to slow him down, bring him further into line here where it's a lot more predictable to see where he's going to go next. And as we exit through Palmer down towards Agostini, see Boris immediately there denied position for the inside of Agostini, but that's actually to Vermack's detriment. He runs over the curves because of that lower pressure. He gets a little too much rotation that he bargained for, and he's going to have to try towards the inside here at Hamilton. It looks like contact very nearly between the pair of them. That was nearly double trouble catastrophe for Just Boris. He gets switched back though by Vermack by going onto the cobbles on the exit of Oggies and into Williams. Finds himself really running a cropper here in this fight for 9th position. I don't believe the like. Vermack putting on a stonewall defence in the Aston Martin on withering conditions at the moment. Progressively drier and drier. These cars are only going to get looser and looser. We're about to see some old school style racing then on our way through Brundle and Nelson. Down towards turn 10, Vermack runs it wide, and I think that's the end of our fight for 9th position. That seems to have sealed the deal there for Just Boris. He's fought diligently for that one. With 3 minutes left to go, his next target would be VSR Otzi in 8th position, currently a second ahead, and he's already dropping the gap like he's standing still. So I must say, remarkable performance on display here. I think had it not been for that incident at turn 1, I don't think anyone could have stood 10 toes on business against Just Boris today. He's definitely giving us a show to behold here right at the very end of round 7. On thoughts of what could have been, though, that is not going to be best in terms of his championship standings, especially with White Doctor a few positions up the road. He's, as a matter of fact, at the back of that top 5, whereas Boris is just scratching around the back of a top 10. So it's definitely been an interesting altercation between, I'd say, our top 3 in the championship, as Chris MCK08 is up in the top 10 there at the moment, just sandwiched in between them. Right now, we're still on with Boris. 2 minutes left to go. You can see he's now eyeing up 8th position off of VSR Oti on our way to Agostini. He's hoping the McLaren runs into the same kind of mistakes the Aston did in his fight before for the very position he now holds on to on his way out of Agostini. No dice, though. A very awkward middle sector, I must say. I don't think it's one that's often renowned by drivers. It's a very Marmite section of this track. Some drivers tend to prefer the Snetterton 200 layout, which skips this section entirely. There's an infield track, as a matter of fact, the Snetterton 100, that just uses this section of the track. Right now, though, on a very good exit of the middle sector, Just Boris looks to be eyeing up his move in at 8th position. Better late than never for some of these moves. Grizz, though, is on an absolute lightning charge, despite the fact that he is in 19th. He's on dry tyres, and it is a night and day difference in performance between the two tyre compounds at the moment. You can see he's just moving past Oti like he's not even there. And I think it'll be the same story here as he tries to get around Boris, who has stuck things out here on the wet compounds. The leader on the final lap will be getting on board with Soviet Mario, who looks to be the race winner here in round 7. A bit of a controversial one to say the least, as this is the driver who started from pole. He ended up in a fray with Soviet, and that cost him the race win today. You can see that Grizz is just walking past him there. The dry compounds. He's gunning for the fastest lap of this race, and I don't think he'll have many competition in the way of it. So we'll catch on board with the last of our battles here before we go on board with our race leader. Having a look around the order, we can see Abok and Tommy keeping each other company. It has been a real mix-up in the grid today. Jayco and Funky Fish, they're the two Porsche swapping positions. Jayco now down to the back of the top 15. Wishful Winnings 1.6 seconds away from the podium there. Will be a little bit reluctant to have let go of a podium today, but will still take home a very solid result here in Snetterton. One of 2 possible results today. Bear in mind, plenty of comebacks on today's itinerary. We can see Blue Frog, who had an absolute lightning charge at the start of this race, will be looking to take home 2nd place. But let's get on board with the driver to be then. On the precipice of his first race win here in gold, Soviet Mario looks to be taking this all the way to the checkered flag. Now, admittedly, on what was a bit of a controversial way to take the race lead, he leads at the moment. And with only a few more corners left to go here at the end of round 7, rounding through Coram Corner down towards Murray's on the final lap here in Snetterton for one of 2 races today. At the end of round 7, the checkered flag flies here in Snetterton. And winning that race in particular will be Soviet Mario. Winning in round 7 then today. One of 2 races on the itinerary. That is a bit of a controversial one. That could be handed, if there is a penalty investigation for Soviet, that could be handed to Blue Frog or perhaps even to Cassie, depending on if anything went sour in that drive. But what an iconic podium we've got here in the utter bedlam that was Snetterton's opening race in this season. Oh, don't go anywhere, ladies and gents. We've got plenty more action on the horizon here in VSR Phoenix. One of 2 races today. To bring up the schedule for today's races, Quali 1 was 10 minutes. We've just gone through race 1. We'll be on to Quali 2 and race 2 in a moment's time. But what a controversial race, to say the least. Plenty to pick apart then for round 7 of the championship. We'll get a look at the final standing orders before we head into round 8 qualifying in a moment's time. What a good result today, though, for Soviet Mario. He won't be arguing with that one. I imagine there are a few drivers in the paddock who would like to have a good argument about it. He won't be one of them. What a result then for the number 26, winning in Snetterton. Looking around the field then to see our next drivers down towards the line. We can see Smiler v Jayco here all the way to the checkered flag. In contention for 16th. Smiler's on the inside of the Porsche. A little bit of contact pushing and shoving between the pair of them. Smiler heading down toward the line. Is but moments away from it there. He'll take home a top 15 finish there on a last lap move against the Porsche. For Mac there inside the top 10. So our final finishing order for round 7 of the championship. Soviet Mario wins in Snetterton on a controversial race start that he elevated to championship glory there. 4.2 seconds ahead of the Blue Frog, who takes home 2nd position. Eli Cassie makes his way to the podium by 1.3 seconds to the number 61. If there had been a little bit of a longer time in this race, I imagine we could have seen a fight for 2nd, take it all the way to the checkered flag. Wishful Winnings then finishes 4th. White Doctor in 5th position. ETE Giles 6th. Chris MCK 7th, just Boris in 8th position. He's had a good comeback drive today after that incident at turn 1. Otzi in 9th, Vermac in the top 10. Tommy takes the fastest lap home and he finishes 11th ahead of Abok, Taz, Funky Fish and Smiler to round out that top 15. Then to the back of our top 20 is Jaco, Reneze, Grizz, Tommy Johansson, I should say, and Shawnee Mack. What a interesting little round we have had then on our hands. And don't go anywhere. We are but moments away from the start of our next qualifying session for round 8 of the championship. Getting a look at that calendar, this is what we're up against. We've just got past round 7, so you'll now be looking to the right-hand side of that calendar for the rest of the season as we enter the second half. Starting then here at Snetterton for round 8 in a moment's time. And what became a dry race at the end, could we see the inverse of that thrown on its head coming into round 8? Now, that would be a sight to behold. If we started on dry and went into a wet race, you could definitely see a much broadly different result out of that. That's the sound of my dog. She's fine. None of you have to worry about that. On towards the next 10-minute qualifying session then in a moment's time. Taz, in chat, they're asking, saying, one more lap and I would have had Abok. What do you think of my performance today? Well, having a look at Taz's performance, he managed to get his way into the top 15. You can see he wasn't actually too far out like he claims he was on Abok. 1 second there, and I think we had plenty of those moments for these drivers, and especially so for the drivers all the way at the back there. Johansson v Shawnee Mack, that was 0.7 of a second to the checkered flag. And look at that there, Chris to Giles. I'm sad that we didn't catch that one. 0.004 of a second. That was incredibly close between those two there. It's a pity we didn't catch that. So next on the horizon will be our qualifying round for round 8 of the championship. Once we get underway with that, we'll be back in just a moment's time. But right now, it's just a bit of the awkward waiting time between these two races. And really, to recap on some of the best drives I think we saw there, definitely you can make the argument for Soviet and Blue Frog. Soviet, despite that incident, was able to keep a very level head about all of this as we head into the next qualifying session then for round 8 of the championship. Let's see where things land. Now, of course, we had a discussion of the qualifying predictions. And now that's sort of functionally thrown out of the window, at least for now, here in Snetterton, as now we've got a bit more of a refined understanding of who to expect inside that top 5. Nonetheless, we'll leave you on board with last round's pole sitter. Ended up finishing inside the top 10 after a disastrous opening lap, courtesy of an incident between himself and the second place car, then turned race leader, Soviet Mario, will stay on board with Boris over the course of this next opening flying lap. So heading into the second half, we still don't have an accurate prediction as to what weather is going to be looking like here in Snetterton. But it seems we've passed the worst of it now. Unlikely to see another wet race on the horizon today, but, you know, touch wood, cross your fingers, what have you. It's not exactly an impossible statistic, as we've already seen. Quite a bizarre last 30 minutes there as we head into the next qualifying session. Boris will be just looking to keep a level head after what was a very stressful round 7 performance after that incident. He's just going to have to keep a cool head about all of this and then elevate this into another pole position. It's as simple as that. He's been able to knock out pole positions in this championship like clockwork. Let's see if the pressure gets to him this time around. We're on board with Boris as we cover the first of our flying laps. You can see there was trouble in the background. That was for Wishful Winnings, just out of Coram. Now on our way out of Murray's. So to give you a more comprehensive tour here of Snetterton. Now, we started down towards Agostini when we started talking about this, but this is the centre straight taking us down into Riches then, this fast right-hander at turn 1. And that's going to give rise to a very sharp braking zone then. If we are to expect it to be a dry race, a very sharp braking zone down into Montreal. Now, we saw plenty of action down in that section of the track in the wet weather. In the dry weather, it's going to be even more chaotic as we head into a very claustrophobic section of the track here, now out through Palmer at turn 3. And you see that a lot of these corners are joined together by these very short straights here. Now, this gives rise to, if you can have a very solid corner exit, or you have a car that's got typically slightly better acceleration than your adversaries, that you can have a very good opportunity to look down the inside or even try your luck around the outside. There is rife with opportunities then here in Snetterton as we now head out of Agostini, now down through Hamilton and down towards Oggies. Out through Williams. Now, we've seen plenty of times before. Very easy in this section of the track for the back end to step away. Just Boris learnt that firsthand in his fight in the back of the top 10 earlier on today. Now down the Bentley straight towards Brundle and Nelson. Now, we've seen plenty of drivers get ambitious in the wet. In the dry, it's going to be even faster on their way through this very, very tight chicane on their way towards the corner with no name. Not even going to try it. Out through turn 10 and in towards Coram. Long sweeping right-hander juxtaposed by an ultra-sharp left-hand kink there at Murray's to take us down towards the line then. So our first flying lap coming from Just Boris. That's going to be our benchmark for today's qualifying session. The 999 then crosses the line with a 1:48.375. Cassie behind looks to go faster and does so by 1.2 seconds. Abbock behind them then to make our third time of the day, and their third by provisional standpoint, but 3.2 seconds off the mark. White Doctor then third. Crossing the line there, that was wishful winnings. Looked to be an invalid lap. He'll have to go around one more time. We can see new times clocking in already. If we have a look, Tommy in 4th position then. Now making 5 complete times today. They're joining the 6th time, 7th, now 8th. You can see plenty of time starting to pile in now with Taz, with Oatsy, with Tommy Johansson, all setting times, with Chris MCK setting times in there as well. Blue Frog setting 6th fastest with Twiglet behind him. Also just saw there as well, Shawnee Mack 9th fastest after his first lap. 5 minutes left to go, so that's how quickly this all ticks by. By the time we've got our first flying laps out of the way, we're practically halfway through the session, so not a lot of time to think for these drivers today. You can see how close things have remained, even through another spell of dry weather between these drivers. Taz and Blue Frog, one case study there, 1/100th of a second between 5th and 6th. That is an ultra-narrow margin in qualifying. Maybe not as narrow as we saw it last time, where two drivers equalised their times in their opening flying laps. But still, as you can actually see in front there, I completely dodged that. By the exact same thousandths of a second metric, White Doctor and Tommy on the exact same time. That is truly remarkable stuff. We'll catch on board then with wishful winnings. He missed out on his first opportunity to set a flying lap here in Snetterton for round 8 qualifying, but we'll stay on board with Wishful on his way down towards the line. Will it be gunning for a top 5 start like last time around? He was a very confident driver through round 7 in less than favourable conditions for that Ferrari. Now that things could be further on his side as he gets down towards the line then from currently 15th position. Where does he land? Past the checkered line with just under 4 minutes left to go. Third by exactly 1 second to pole position. Very, very solid stuff. Tommy across the line up to 4th. Goes ahead of White Doctor and Tyler Vermack in the Aston Martins. Renese up to the top 10. We just saw there as well. The 114 was in 9th. That's just pushed down a 10th because of Grizz's time, putting him in the top 5. Now, we saw in qualifying predictions, we want to bring these up. Of course, these are now functionally outdated, but Grizz was predicted inside the top 5 this whole time. And I think now, in the second wave of qualifying for today's racing sessions, he's finally been able to wake up the number 44 Audi and elevate it into some proper competitive form. And all power to him, really. I mean, it was a sensational show back in round 7. I think with more favourable conditions potentially on the horizon, we could see an even better race this time around. Second time's the charm for VSR Grizz in the number 44 Audi. Looking around the field to see where our next drivers are coming from. It's VSR Smiler at the moment. Now we saw a little bit of a skirmish between himself and Jayco towards the line at the end of round 7. This was for the last of those top 15 positions. Just see what the Aston Martin can do here from a 4.1 second deficit from 17th. Goes up to 16th and ahead of Shawnee Mack at the end of that flying lap. The 999 is next towards the line then. Can Just Boris re-secure pole position in the Lamborghini? He's got 3 attempts to make it. As he gets to the line there, doesn't appear to have found an improvement, but has Cassie is the real question there. As he crosses the line from behind him, it's a double negative for the pair of them. The number 98, you see there, having a bit of trouble after turn 1, has to narrowly avoid trouble on the far side of the track. There, now, admittedly, I say there isn't a lot of runoff. There is, but it is all grass. So unless you're kitted out with a set of Hankook rally tyres, you're not having a fun time on the far edges of the track. See their time starting to flow in. We've seen Oatsy just went 5th fastest. Taz behind them with Chris MCK just looming from behind in 9th position. Chris stays in position for the time being. Taz remains in what was originally 11th, now 12th. After the number 61 of Blue Frog crossed the line and set the 6th fastest time. All of them at the moment from 1st down to 7th inside 1 second of the fastest time of the session thus far. Elite Cassie leading the charge. We did say on his day he can really set a standard for qualifying. See here with VSR Funky Fish on his way to the line. Currently in 11th, just scraping at a top 10 start. Then he's got one more lap to try and make that possible. We'll catch on board then very quickly with Just Boris. Gunning for pole position. You can see he's really thrown caution to the wind on this lap here. Absolutely ragging the 999 around Coram. We saw him very nearly run into some trouble on the exit of turn 10 out through Murray's. He's really using every available inch of the track here. He's only 300ths ahead of the car behind him, and he needs to make 0.3 of a second for pole position onto his final available lap to do so. He does half the margin. Now he's got to do that all over again to try and make pole position. Then lies the question, what is going to be the retort by Elite Cassie? You can see right now he's in the pit lane, so he's confident in his assertion that he can hold on to pole position here by the end of this session today. The number 94 just crossed the line a moment ago. The number 94, if we try and take a look here, was Tyler Vermack, made 9th position. He's got one more lap to try and stake a claim to a top 5 start. That would be the target for the South African. He's in dead heat there between himself and Grizz, who just opens the taps to make it 7th fastest and onto one more available lap here in qualifying. So really, that is quite remarkable there. He got that just down to the second to have one more opportunity to gun for 6th position, which is sort of held by his sort of half rival, half comrade in arms, Oatsy. In the number 6, currently holds on to 6th position. It's only about 0.06 of a second there. A lot of sixes involved in their contention for 6th position. Number 982 across the line then goes Funky Fish from 13th position. Does he find his way to a top 10 by the end of qualifying? No, but he does find himself ahead of Taz and up into 12th for the start of round 8. Next driver then to the line, number 32 is VSR Smiler. Right at the end of qualifying. On his way out of Murray's. On his trails at the moment is Just Boris. We actually catch on board there with Boris to see if he can finally make even on his 2 for 2 pole position goal. On his way down towards the line then goes the 999. Has to find 1.5 of a second. He gets to the checker flag and he manages to do just that and then some by a 10th of a second. Claims pole position again. 2 on the trot there for the 999. That is remarkable stuff. Down to the line then goes Tyler Vermack in the Aston Martin. Number 9. Not number 9, 9th position, makes 4th position, then pushed out to 5th by Wishful Winnings, back onto the 2nd row again here in qualifying. 114 to the line, Reneze joined by Grizz in the final stints here of quali. Reneze makes 11th, Grizz from 8th, stays 8th for the end of quali. That is razor thin. You can see there, nearly 10 drivers inside a second of one another there for pace at the end of round 8 qualifying. Now, if we can elevate this into a dry race, we are looking at a real treat on our hands here in Snetterton. But another dominant pole position by Just Boris. Is anyone really that surprised now that he could do back-to-back pole position runs here? Where he was stifled for his opportunity to win one. Will he make the same mistake twice? And with Soviet a few positions behind him there, As a matter of fact, down in 18th. I think he actually took the session off. He's maybe already been given a bit of a penalty by the stewards. Or maybe he's elected to do that himself after that race win. That is definitely going to be an interesting start to the second race of today. Make no mistake of that. We'll see what the weather conditions are looking like then as we exit qualifying today. And on towards the start of our next race. One of, well, the second of two today, actually, as a matter of fact. You can see that ultra thin margin though between our top three, less than 0.2 of a second. Now, to give some understanding, your average human reaction time, I believe, is about 0.144 seconds for most people. Now, this is, of course, from age ranges young to old, and that's 0.145 between our top three. So really is a case of blink and you'll miss it between those three, and that is going to elevate itself into one hell of a start for round 8, getting us a look then through the standing order then for round 8 of VSR Phoenix Season 8, with Just Boris back on pole position. Is twice today. Will he find himself in the same problem heading down into turn 1 in drier conditions? May not be the case this time around. Elite Cassie starts on a very confident front row ahead of Wishful Winnings and Tommy. Tyler Vermack makes the top 5 again. White Doctor behind him there makes an all Aston Martin third row. And with VSR Oatsy and Greers not too far behind him, it's going to be a very, very spicy top 10 indeed. Rounding things out then will be the Blue Frog and Chris MCK08 with the number 61 and 81. Rounding out 9th and 10th position. Renese finds himself just outside of the top 10 for the second time going, but hopefully on more grand prospects into today's race as opposed to how things panned out through round 7. Behind him is VSR Funky Fish, who'll be starting around the outside at turn 1. Taz MCFC makes 13th position as alongside VSR Abok, and rounding out our top 15 was the driver who placed 15 in last race today, VSR Smiler, in the number 32 Aston Martin. Tommy Johansson right alongside him makes another Aston Martin row in today's grid. They seem to gravitate towards one another, so it seems. Shawnee Mack right behind them in 17th position, with Jaco in 18th in the number 14. Giles behind them, Twiglet in 20th, and Soviet Mario starting plumb last. And it appears, was that disconnect there by the 26? And so, legs bouncing in anticipation for what the start is going to look like here in much more favourable conditions than round 7. We're only a minute away from the start of round 8 of VSR Phoenix Season 8. And I think we failed to discuss before today was the silver and bronze championship. So whilst we just quickly got the opportunity, this is what it was looking like before round 7. It was a 10-point gap between Grizz and Oatsy. You can see they're right alongside each other on the grid at the moment, so do keep a close eye on that. And then in the bronze championship, it has been razor thin all season long. You really got to hand it to them there. Abok leading by 14 points to Jaco 14. So we'll get on board with Just Boris for his second pole position start today. Will he have more luck this time around? He'll be taking us away then in the 999 Lamborghini. So taking us away, and he's not got any lighter field of competition backing him up for this round, though he has much more favourable conditions for the 999. You can see backing him up there are two very tough customers. And then even further behind them, two even tougher customers. I'd make the assessment of it is not going to be an easy field of competition to scope up against here for Just Boris, even on better conditions than last race around. Now, admittedly, he doesn't have a Soviet Mario-shaped problem backing him up into turn 1. Or, I suppose, pushing him out of turn 1. Neither here nor there. Here's hoping that he doesn't run into the same kind of trouble as he did back in round 7. another 30-minute race then on the horizon, just taking us away. Then there'll be less consideration for stability problems now that we're on dry setups. We're in a little bit more predictable weather for the time being. As a matter of fact, taking a look very quickly, you can see there in the top right, the weather is looking to be cloudy for at least 30 minutes here, so no imminent threat so far of rain. I don't think the drivers will have much in the way to worry about this time around. They'll be able to just enjoy the nice and dry conditions here. Track conditions still looking very favourable for our top two. They're going to make a very exciting battle, one of several. It'll be difficult to talk just about their fight. There's going to be plenty to discuss. We do apologise if we miss some of them just because of the quantity of some of the fights going on here. Down the Bentley straight, Boris from Cassie from Wishful. I sense a bit of a scrum on the horizon, a bit of a skirmish between these three, all pushing and shoving to get past one another. This could get very, very naughty here in round 8 of the championship. The last things you want to see if you're on pole position, even if you are someone as someone as inclined in the talent bracket as just Boris, is a driver like Elite Cassie, is a driver like Wishful Winnings, is a driver like Tommy, because really when they're firing on all cylinders, things can get rather nasty. Speaking of nasty, what's going on with the ping there for Wishful Winnings? That's not going to be helping him anyway at all. On our way down into turn 1. Do not want to start having desync issues at a track like this. It seems to be a bit of a universal issue for these drivers today. But now we can see backing us up out of turn 10 is our front row, Elite Cassie and Just Boris, on the precipice of a start for our second and last race today. That being the first race of June 4th, for round 8 of the championship here in VSR Phoenix Season 8. Last season's champion now looks to be on the charge yet again in his Lamborghini. So we are but moments away from the start then as we exit Murray's Corner. Now, admittedly, 21 cars in all, but with quite a few of them there too, as a matter of fact, taking pit lane starts, Tommy Johansson and Soviet Mario. It should be a little bit of a spry start then for Just Boris without the McLaren backing him up. Let's see where the penny drops then on our second go around here in Snetterton in much better conditions for round 8 of the championship. Without further ado then, 21 cars in all, and we for the second time today are green and racing here in Snetterton, and a much better start than last for Just Boris as he looks to already start holding off Elite Cassie and Tommy and Wishful, but Cassie takes it the long way around but takes quite a chunk of grass with him on his way around turn 1, bringing immediately out the yellow flags as he goes barrelling off track. In what was a disastrous start, fortunately for Boris, not for his sake anymore. So that was definitely a bit of a breath of fresh air for him here as he now makes his way down through Palmer Corner. Right behind him then Wishful Winnings, and White Doctor gets a lightning start with Aston Martin. Let's get on board with them then. Inside that top 5, Tyler Vermack looking to go door for door here with Tommy. We're on board at the moment with Tyler Vermack, currently fighting by the looks of it for 4th position up against Tommy. Now Tommy will have the inside on his way down through Hamilton. Nearly contact between the pair of them there, just past the apex on their way down towards Oggies. We see Oatsy is right behind him, and that is quite a stampede of cars inside the top 10 backing up Tyler Vermack right now. He's feasibly going to find himself very, very shortly, unless he can tuck himself into the slipstream nice and tidy there from the Porsche. He's found himself mincemeat of the McLaren and the Ford of Blue Frog, who look to try and have a go side by side up through Brundle, then to Nelson. Oatsy holds his nerve. Blue Frog's right with him though. Make no mistake of that. The Mustang's here to play for Tyler Vermack. This is a terrifying sight in his rear view mirror as he holds on to 5th. Out through Coram, down towards Murray's. Boris still leads from Wishful. White Doctor is closing the gap and closing it fast. Tommy not too far away at all, but Vermack finds himself running scared from the rest of the top 10 here in what looks like a terrifying ensemble of drivers down the centre straight. Absolutely brutal stuff. Let's get a look here with White Doctor though, who looks to be getting a handful here in the fight for 2nd position. Down through Montreal at turn 2. Now, he's not got an easy target to pick at here. Wishful Winnings has got a little bit of desync. It does make his moves a little less predictable, and you can see it's the same story up front, really. Seems to be a bit of a server side issue here in VSR. Now, it wouldn't be a Assetto Corsa Competizione race without a little bit of G-Portal shenanigans. I think we know all too well about this here on TRTN. Now on our way through Agostini. Right now, White Doctor just settling into rhythm. Nothing to report then on that front. We check in here. Elite Cassie has had an absolute howler of a start. That he's down in 19th after that incident at turn 1 that he caused upon himself. Trying for some ambitious moves around the outside. It's all come apart. The seams are in there. He's going to have a long, long road to the checkered flag to think about it. Tommy at the moment looks to be eyeing up a third place position off of White Doctor. But it's in sort of en passant there between those three from second down to fourth, all in equal distance from one another. The driver right now with quite a lump in their throat inside that top 10 is Tyler Vermack. If we try and find whereabouts on track he is, we see Taz there just get an absolute blinder move around the outside of Grizz, and going off the track is Chris MCKOA. He's going to have to try and find his way back on board. Very nearly takes Grizz with him. Stuff really livening up here towards the back of the top 10. Having a look here, Shawnee Mac and Elite Cassie look to be clashing heads here on our way out of turn 10. Now running wide again goes the BMW, but he's just going to hold that throttle shut. On our way to Murray's, and a bit of contact there between Jaco and Elite Cassie. That ended up being a little bit disastrous. Meanwhile, as we're watching this replay, we can see that Cassie is trying around the outside yet again, this time on Shawnee Mac. Right behind him is Soviet Murray. We saw just a little tap there, little love tap on the exit of Murray's corner. Shawnee Mac then now behind Soviet and Elite Cassie on our way to Montreal. See here, Soviet trying to get elbows out. That looks like a very nice switch back on the horizon for him, but he's going to have to try and make things stick here on our way down towards Palmer. Can he really nip this in the bud? No, he can't, because fighting him back is Elite Cassie. This is grand stuff between the pair of them at the back of our top 17 positions. Absolutely brilliant stuff. You can take them out of the top 10, but you can't take the top 10 fighting out of them. This is all, bear in mind, for 17th position right now, and they are giving us quite a show here in Snetterton. Down towards Hamilton, though. Soviet's back behind. We'll catch up with these two in a moment's time. We take a look back into our top 10. Our race leader at the moment, Just Boris, has really ran off with this one now. We're going to be getting a look on board with a very, very spry battle at the back of our top 10 at the moment. This is Grizz we're watching on board with at the moment. And he's really got quite the field to contend with here. Now he's defending for 10th position from Taz and Chris MCK behind him. That Audi is really going to have to put in a shift here if it means to give him a top 10 finish today. He's got 24 minutes to make true on that, and he's got quite the crowd mounting at his rear. See a bit of a step out there for Taz. Very good control though to keep things in the clear and narrow for the McLaren, but it has loosened his sort of advantage there back into favour for Chris MCK, who's right on his heels. Grizz having a bit of a poor exit there of Murray's. Could be vulnerable to an attack here by Taz, who's got a plentiful run in that McLaren to put it what looks to be side by side. But which way is he going to pick? He's tried for left, he goes for right, and he sticks back in behind. Grizz there just giving no quarter whatsoever. You shall not pass, he says. On our way down to Montreal, we even saw Chris MCK went there, and he did try for the inside, and a little bit of pushing and shoving between himself and the McLaren of Taz MCFC 1989. That was a little bit spry, dare I say, between the McLaren and the Ferrari. And now he backs himself up in ETE Giles. As a matter of fact, we're going to have to check in with those two. We're going to weigh here from the perspective of our silver driver, that being VSR Grizz. Let's try and catch on board what on earth went on down here. As a matter of fact, let's just quickly check in. Cassie now joins the fight with Twiglet and Smiler. And Soviet on his trails as well. Tommy at the moment in a bit of a lonely 4th position. The drivers ahead of him are fighting. The drivers behind him are fighting. But he doesn't get any fights. See, Abok at the moment is caught firmly in the maelstrom here of what is going on behind him. Smiler now the next target of Elite Cassie's indiscriminate wrath down the Bentley straight. That is a driver taking no prisoner today. Let's look behind here from Abok's perspective. He goes the long way around at Brundle, then at Nelson. That is just remarkable stuff. Feral performance by Elite Cassie. Let's get on board with Chris MCK 08. He goes up against Taz MCFC. Taking a look then from the perspective of Chris MCK. Backs himself up onto Giles there after a poor exit by Taz. The McLaren there, a little bit of contact between him and Chris on our way down towards turn 1. Now, this is in the fight for 11th position. Taz holding that position right now, and these two clambering over one another to come and have a go as we exit turn 1. Now on our way down towards Montreal. This is Giles' opportunity to try something very crazy, but he's just going to sit behind and see how things go. It's chess, not checkers here. Still 22 minutes to play for here in round 8 of the championship, but they've got to get a move on, because in the background is a rapidly approaching Elite Cassie, gunning for a top 10 finish today. In much similar vein to what we saw out of Boris last round, it seems to be Cassie's turn to give us a comeback drive. On our way down towards Agostini though, Chris to the inside on Taz, a little bit of contact between the pair of them. Giles right alongside now, Taz on his way down towards Hamilton, still got the space there, but the McLaren is trying something very, very ambitious there on the inside. The gap was closing up massively, and he just forced Taz to subside and give him the position. Taz isn't out of this fight though, he's still clamouring to the back end of the number 57. Right now, though, from the perspective of Chris MCK08, it's pay dirt on the exit of Williams. Down the Bentley straight, he's up into 11th. Now having to defend on the way down the Bentley straight after a bit of a poor exit. We did see a snap of oversteer for him there. And in the wake of two McLarens, this is a tough one to hold on to. He's going to have to try something very ambitious here on his way through Brundle. Now out of Nelson, it's a wide exit. Onto the grass, he loses one position. Does he miss two? No. So on the exit of turn 10 and down in a Coram, hazards aloof here towards the back of the top 10, all in that fight for 11th position. Giles now to the advantage. We're now fundamentally looking at the fight for 12th position between Chris and Taz on the exit of Murray's. See further behind them as well, Cassie and Abok only 6 tenths apart from one another. We'll be getting a look at the battles inside the top 5 at the moment. We can still see that is very, very close up there. Right now, quickly just watching the fight for 12th here between Chris MCK and Taz. Giles up the road. Taz has gone for an absolutely lightning send up the inside there. How on earth did he make that move stick? Getting a look at that on the replay, that was really some brave stuff. That takes guts. That really does. You can see he was very, very far behind and just went for it. And fair enough, Chris picked up on this. He gave him the space. I must say, what a move by Taz. But has it fallen apart for him out of Agostini? Because he now finds himself vulnerable. He's going to have to really try down through Hamilton and into Oggies to hold off Chris MCK08, knowing that he's now on the advantage on our way through the middle sector. Elite Cassie, by the way, has caught up to the pair of them, so this could get very nasty very shortly. Now through Williams, Chris to the inside. Taz trying to squeeze there. Both of them having a bit of a poor run. And look at this now. Here comes Elite Cassie right on the rear quarter. We are now looking fundamentally at a 3-car fight for 12th, but what can Chris do as he's caught right in the middle of it? Oh, it's very close to a problem there between all 3 of them. Taz was the only one made it out there in one piece. Chris very nearly taking himself to an early trip to the grass. Cassie having to swerve out of the way to make sure he didn't become mincemeat, courtesy of the careening number 81. Very, very close stuff indeed. Just under 19 minutes left to go on the exit of Murray's. Right now, watching that fight for 13th position now. Cassie has got straight line speed to his benefit here. Is moving past that Ferrari like he's put it in park and down into turn 1. There goes Elite Cassie up the position then to 13th. Chris having a bit of a bump on the exit of turn 1. He's going to take things very wide here on his way to Montreal. He drops down behind and gets contact for his efforts there trying to rejoin. Let's get a look at that on the replay as we were looking down at our monitors just at the moment of impact. See there as he rejoins down towards Montreal. He caught Abok right at the braking zone there. I don't think it was contact per se, but it was very close to. I think he had to like swerve out of the way just at the last second there. So now we're on board with Taz in the silver category. Right now, currently fighting to hold off 13th position then. Abok not too far away from him at all. He already lost out to Elite Cassie there. He was made light work by the BMW over the course of the last couple of corners there. 17.5 minutes left to go. Taz has got his back against the wall here, but he's not out of the fight. Down towards Brundle and Nelson, though. Abok has really got him on the ropes here. That Ferrari right with him, and a big leap over the sausage curbs by the pair of them is going to put them on the back foot with Soviet on the horizon. Abok trying for the inside through turn 10. Now on the way to Coram. This could get very nasty very, very quickly. Make no mistake of it. Taz out through Coram, then through Murray. Soviet right on his tail now. On our way down the centre straight. Soviet now to the inside here. Taz really wants to hold on to this position. He's going to have to try something very, very ambitious, but not this time around. It was sealed before he even made the corner there. It was a phenomenal exit by Soviet. He's put not a foot wrong there on his comeback drive. The number 982 appears to be in trouble, and the yellow flags are out for this sector of the track, and that's for Funky Fish in the Porsche. Not too far up the road, as a matter of fact, on his way now just through Palmer. Seemed to have been an issue just after Montreal. We're back into yellow flag conditions then for the time being. 16.5 minutes left to go. You can see there the wounded Porsche up ahead. What we are looking at right now no longer is that fight for 13th position that we were confident that it was. He's dropped down now to 14th. Soviet's just a little too far up the road for this to be a fight for 13th anymore. We are looking at that fight for 14th position. And a very lively one it is indeed. 4 cars involved. Taz, Abok, Smiler and Twiglet. We'll catch up with these 4 in just a moment's time. We want to take a quick glance around the track here, see where our next fights are coming from. We are looking at a potential fight here for 12th position very quickly between Soviet Mario and VSR Funky Fish down through Brundle and Nelson. You see a little bit of desync there. It's not making this a very easy one to cover. On his way out of turn 10. Then out of Coram, then to Murray's. And they're looking to cement the move very shortly. He's got him dead to rights on the exit of Murray's corner. Now down towards Rich's. Can he try for something here? Down through turn 1. He's got much more momentum on his side there, but the Porsche just covering him off before Montreal. Is Soviet going to be looking for the lunge on the inside? He's right with him there, but holds off again. I think he's letting the Porsche run himself out of road, but Funky Fish has got him absolutely dead set when it comes to defense there. Very, very good stuff by Funky Fish. See here, this is Twiglet in the Mercedes, number 96. Firmly caught in that fight for the top 15 positions right now. Abok in front of him, Smiler, and then Taz. Chris not too far away at all. I'll say that the desync's not been making this particularly easy to understand what the driver's going through at the moment. Down through Hamilton. Just get a gander inside that view there from the Mercedes on the exit of Oggies, then into Williams. It's so much traffic in front of him. Bit of a step out there you saw from the 32, the Aston Martin of Smiler. The Ferrari right in front of him there, number 27, which is VSR Abok. Looks to be having a very good time of things here. You can see the pink or sort of purplish magenta Ferrari behind him. It's Chris MCK08, number 81. As we head into Brundle and Nelson. Smiler and Taz, though, side by side. So Taz has dropped massively back into this fight. Smiler gets the advantage for a moment there on his way to Coram. Looking from the perspective here, the Mercedes caught firmly in the mix. Heading down into Murray's. It is absolute traffic mayhem for these drivers. This is all in control for 14th position here. It's absolute warfare in the second of 2 races here in Snetterton in VSR Phoenix CZ8, and it is an absolute treat to behold. Contact there between the McLaren and the Aston, trying their luck for 14th position down into Montreal. It's in favour of Smiler, but here comes Abok. That is brutal. What on earth has gone on there? Caution to the wind. Twiglet Chris and Smiler all caught up in that. What on earth was going on there? There was no intention to make the corner between either of those drivers. It was really a wing and a prayer for Abok. And he's got off scot-free from that. Not if the stewards will have anything to say about it. But, yeah, that is a very confusing state of affairs. Twiglet then with Smiler down in 17th and 18th position. We'll catch up with him later on. Looking in at the moment with Just Boris, he's opened the gap up to 3.3 seconds to White Doctor. So he'll be outscoring the potential champion to be for this round. He may have won the battle, but he's currently losing the war. Speaking of Lamborghinis, here's Renese. Now inside the top 10. Now that was the goal from the start for the 114 on his first races here in VSR Phoenix, was to make a top 10 appearance. He had a bit of a lackluster start with the wet conditions not being too favourable for Lamborghini in this round. Just gone, I should say. But it's looking a lot better. And like I've said before, with every dark cloud comes a silver lining here. And despite Giles and Cassie being very stern competition to go up against, Renese's making good work of it at the moment. We'll stay on board with them on our way down into turn 1. As a matter of fact, you can see there Giles and Cassie going side by side. This is from the rear view of the 114. We're getting a very nice view of the fight for 10th. And they're massively long on the brakes. That seems to be his Achilles heel for Cassie, is going long on the brakes there. Outbraking your opponent. Yes, the BMW can do it, but only so many times. Their brake drop-off, even in short races, is noticeable for the M4. Having a look around the top 10. Tyler Mack, 0.4 of a second. Oh, very close as a matter of fact to Blue Frog there. A bit of a muck-up for the number 61. We'll be staying on board then with Tyler Vermack. Currently fighting for 5th position on his exit of Williams corner. Down the Bentley straight though, you can see he's a sitting duck up against the Mustang. That Ford has just got absolutely grandiose straight line speed. It is unparalleled stuff. When we ran data checks on top end speed for a lot of these cars when we were racing in Monza in a different league, we ran some data packets and found that Lexus, BMW and Ford are all in dead heat when it comes to the fastest top speed. The only car faster than them is one we see once in a blue moon, the Aston Martin V12 Vantage, by a single mile an hour. And we've got 10 minutes left to go then. Right now it's the story of the V8 Vantage in its battle against the 7th generation Ford Mustang. Down into Rich's corner then. Wide over turn 1. Will he have better luck down into turn 2? See the abominable tree man in the background there. Very bizarre bit of foliage here in Snetterton. Down through Palmer at turn 3. See, Vermack just playing hesitantly here. He's not going to try anything too dangerous. Number 14 in trouble, then yellow flags do come out in sector 3 past turn 10 and into Coram. That's for Jayco 14. The 996 as well has also found his way into trouble, having to rejoin the track by cutting Murray's. Could be an investigation on the horizon. That's between the 996 and the 4 at this time. Back in the green flag conditions for the time being on our way through Williams. Just under 9 minutes left to go then in this fight for 5th position. Blue Frog versus Tyler Vermack. Down into Brundle and Nelson, you can see he's got a much more confident line in that section of the track over Blue Frog, but that's really just about it when it comes to having the better line. The Mustang has got him pitched in every medium to high speed corner on this track just by nature of being the faster car. The number 996 is in serious disarray. Where's the 996 off to? Did anyone see that on the minimap there? Number 996 Taz MCFC was gone for a little bit of a safari in the middle of the track there. That was bizarre. What on earth went on? We'll be sure to ask him over the course of the next couple of minutes here. He'll be in our chat in a moment's time to tell us about it. 8 minutes left to go then. White Doctor in second by a 4-second margin to our current race leader, Just Boris. Second time's the charm then. It will be his 3rd race win this season on the horizon for Just Boris. These two currently matched for the most amount of race wins in Season 8 at 2. As a matter of fact, having a look at our previous winners over the course of this, save for round 7, which went to Soviet Mario. It's currently been 2 wins apiece there for White Doctor and Just Boris. Looking around the field then, having a gander at where our next fights could be coming from. Now, keeping an eye peeled here. See Smiler and Chris and Twiglet there look to be present company for a fight at the back of the top 15. We'll stay on board then with Chris for the time being. To answer your question in chat, Nico, we can't check replays on this because it will crash the game. So, down through Hamilton, in towards Oggies. These 3 have shared in what have been a very decent ensemble of skirmishes over the course of today's race. I must say, it has been a treat to watch these drivers go absolute hell for leather. Touring car style here in cars 4 to 5 times their value. Does show you that GT racing, yes, it's the posher version of touring cars, but it has not lost the grit that it was built upon there. Really is, as the name implies, grand touring, big touring cars, big power, insane action. 6 minutes left to go then here in Snetterton, and as we start to wind things down, these drivers are only starting to wind things back up for the battle of the last of the top 15 positions. Out through Murray's. That Mercedes has great straight line speed, but the Ferrari has got him pitched through the corner to have slightly better momentum. And whilst he's inside that golden zone for slipstream, Chris has the opportunity to maybe surf this one into the inside at turn 1. It might be just too far away, and so it is, down through Richard's corner there. Very, very difficult to make a mark stick through that section of the track. We can see Abok falling behind there, behind actually Funky Fish falling behind Abok for a moment. You see up ahead of them, from the perspective of Chris MCK, is that fight at the moment between Abok and Funky Fish. Let's get on board with that, if we can. Having a quick check around, and we should, with any luck, be able to find them just before anything gets too crazy. Here's VSR Funky Fish then, in the silver category. Right now, currently fighting to hold off 13th position. 0.4 of a second margin between himself and Abok. Abok's not a stranger to making some lofty lunges, as we saw down in Montreal earlier this race. See behind them, that fight between Twiglet and Chris is livening up. So which way you swing it here, we've got some very solid fights on our hands. We'll stay on board, though, with that fight for 13th. I don't think Abok is going to let this distance slide with 4.5 minutes left to go. We know he likes to go very late on the brakes, and that's my point exactly. Down through Brundle and Nelson, halves the gap in one corner. That is brutal use of the brakes there. What's remarkable about that as well is that one of the defining factors of the car Funky Fish is driving, the Porsche 992 GT3R, latest generation Porsche 911 GT3 race car, is its phenomenal bite on the brakes. It is one of the hardest cars to outbrake, not if you're Abok. It becomes less a limitation of machine and more a limitation of man. Abok is taking 0 prisoners on the brakes there. Down in the Montrealis brakes will be doing their best impression of the surface of the sun. In the background, though, you can see that's Twiglet into the wall. We'll try and get that on replay just to see what on earth went on. It was out of Rich's corner. We were watching here with the fight for 13th as it starts to liven up in the background. He just catches the curb and he's into the wall there in the background for Twiglet. So that's gone rather pear-shaped for him. We're back on with the fight for 13th position. Abok is looking to try and go for a very, very lofty switchback, but he holds his nerve and runs things out wide. I think we saw what the motivation was there. He was going to try and go very wide at the start, then late apex to try and switch back Funky Fish, but I don't think he expected the 982 to have a perfect line through there. Very nearly looked like a disconnect for Funky Fish, and really a bit of a heart in the throat moment there. I've seen the conditions of a event crash all too often there. Getting a little bit of PTSD from G-Portal servers, royally screwing the pooch when it comes to performance over the course of any season, as a matter of fact. So it turns out, on our way down the Bentley Straight, Abok still with Funky Fish, getting a quick gander around the field though. We cut away from these two for the time being. Just having a quick peruse around. It's the fight for fourth. Blue Frog versus Wishful down into Montreal. Wishful covering the inside on the Blue Frog. This is sensational fighting between the pair on their exit of Montreal down towards turn 3 at Palmer. Right now, we're watching on board with Wishful Winnings on his return to Gold Standard Racing. He's holding on to 4th position right now, defending from an attacking Blue Frog here in what looks to be a sensational final battle for today's race. Just Boris has elevated this to an absolute showstopper drive. What he was trying to aim for back in round 7. Second time appears to be the charm for last season's champion on his third race win on the horizon today. With only one more lap left in it after this one right now. Let's see what goes on in the proceedings for 4th position between Blue Frog and Wishful Winnings, as this looks to be getting very close. Down through Brundle, then through Nelson. Into turn 10 we go. See Vermack in the background there. Looks to be claiming a P6. Not too shabby for the Aston Martin, but he had a lonely race after the halfway mark. So as the game indicated there, leader on the final lap. Boris has one more tour around Snetterton here before what looks to be his 3rd race win on the horizon. Wishful covering the inside, then trying to snip the toe off of Blue Frog's Mustang. Down into Rich as we go then for the last time in round 8. Blue Frog with a much, much better exit there. Wishful knows this all too well, and he's covering the inside, getting very early on the brakes to try and force Blue Frog out onto the grass. Oh my word, and it's a spin for the 61. Bringing a very sour end to what could have been an absolute blinder of a fight in today's race. Wishful Winnings, though, won't be arguing with where he stands at the end of this final race of the day. We're quickly just back on board here with Chris MCK08 versus Abok. Battle of the Ferraris here for 14th position. On the inside at Riches goes Chris MCK08. The number 81 gets that tidied up through turn 1. Very, very nicely done. Abok looks to be a little too far away to stage a comeback. And a comeback he cannot stage. Blue Frog's not going to be happy at all with getting shoved off the track like that. There are going to be some words that I cannot say as a professional on this live stream. This is meant to be a family-friendly live stream here. And I daren't repeat some of the things they're going to say at the end of this race. But getting on board then with Just Boris as we get down through turn 10, then to Coram. Looks to be 2nd time's the charm today for last season's champion as he rounds Murray's at the end of round 8 here. The last of our races today here at Snetterton goes to Just Boris. 3rd win this season for the 999. He takes the checkered flag to win in Snetterton for the last time today. White Doctor takes home 2nd. Tommy looking to pick up a podium with Porsche. So let's get on board with the rest of our fights to the line then. Tyler Vermack looks to take home 5th as Oatsy and Blue Frog 6th and 7th. Wishful 4th. Oh my word, getting across the line there. A little bit elbows out, fellas. Down towards the line goes Oatsy. Blue Frog and Cassie, barely anything between them as they get across the line. 7th and 8th. Grizz to the line then. 9th position inside the top 10. Another solid points result. And then Reneze on his debut makes a top 10. What a finish then. Giles to the line. Soviet right behind him there. A bit of a spry exit between the pair of them. Oh my word, these McLarens, they're a bit crazy. Down to the line then goes Funky Fish for 13th position. A great result and a great comeback from the last round just gone. Chris the line 14th. Abok in 15th position. Smiler across the line 16th. Tommy Johansson with Aston Martin rounds Murray's to take it to the line for 17th position. Shawnee Mack and Jayco 14, our last 2 drivers of the day, look to be in 18th and 19th position here at the end of the line. What a race it has been today then by our drivers. A very well done then to Soviet Mario and Just Boris, our 2 race winners for today for round 7 and 8 of VSR Phoenix Season 8 here at Snetterton, the second of our 3 available sprint format rounds, just to bring you up to date on the calendar here. Now as we exit this round, getting across the line just behind our calendar there was Shawnee Mac and Jayco 14. DNFs by Taz and Twiglet reluctantly at the end of this round, making only 19 finishing cars. This is what it's looking like then after today's round on the 4th of June. We'll be heading to Monza next week on the 11th, and the Templar Speed back into the hour-long race formats for 2 more weeks then in Italy and France for round 9 and 10. Then we're back into our final sprint format of the season at Valencia for the first time ever here on TRTN, making its debut, the Circuit Ricardo Tormo. Then for our penultimate round, we're also in Spain again, back at Barcelona for the penultimate round, back onto the hour-long format, and then to Kyle Army on the 9th of July. Wow, what a race that has been. Hopefully you have enjoyed the coverage for today. It's been quite a bit of action. We hope that we've caught as much action as we could. Obviously, we're always going to miss out a few battles here and there, so our sincerest apologies to any of the drivers who felt that we missed out on their fight today. Very tough to keep all eyes in more than one place at a time, I should say. It's also been a very good opportunity for us today to test out some brand new technology, to give you some context over the course of some of the proceedings this week here on TRTN. Over the course of last weekend, we finally took delivery of an Elgato Stream Deck Mark II, and since pairing it with OBS, we ran into a few technical problems in both setup and in code. We've had to update a lot of the technical specifications on our PC that it's used to operate these live streams, so it's been a bit of a tough week to get everything tied up in a nice, neat bow. Some of the keen-eyed viewers here on TRTN and here from VSR as well would have noticed that we ran some diagnostic streams over the course of the last couple of days just to make sure everything was ironed out as smooth as it could be. And now that we're getting to Vices with the operation of the Stream Deck, we're hoping our streams will be a little bit more streamlined, no pun intended. And that was the first of hopefully many successful runs here in the Stream Deck era for TRTN. But what a pair of races to give us that debut. Round 7 and 8 were a glory to behold. Round 7 was just as controversial as the race that followed on from it. And a very well done, as mentioned before, to Soviet Mario and Just Boris, your 2 race winners for today. And that is definitely quite a high note to leave on then. Second time's the charm after 2 pole position runs here. Consecutive poles for the 999. Finally takes the mark to the top step for another home ground victory. I must say, when you take him to a British circuit, he does not disappoint, that Just Boris. He does not at all. Well, a very, very big thanks to you for watching today's stream. We hope you've enjoyed it just as much as we have putting all of this together. That's the end of the line here for us on TRTN. We hope you all enjoyed today's streams. You'll be joining us if you're from VSI. You'll be joining us on the 11th for Monza. If you're with us from elsewhere in our area of operation, we'll be live this coming Saturday for the opening round of the NLRL Solo Multi-Class Endurance Championship by Malwar Transport. Until then, that's all from us here on TRTN. Have a wonderful rest of your evening and take care. Good night.